I call to order this continuation of the regular commission meeting that was originally dated May the 20th. This is a pickup from a recess, and this is calling back into order. We will be doing a short prayer, a pledge to the flag, and get started on doing the work. So we thank you for letting us make it through another day, and we hope that you will continue to hold your hand out and guide us in our meeting tonight. In your son's name, amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're not a politician, so we don't need flowery speeches.
You're not a politician, so you don't need flowers.
Flowers.
You said you were just going to do a short prayer. I thought that was like short, but good.
What do you do?
Yes.
Calling.
Freedom of Information Act. In compliance with the Freedom of Information Act, notice of this meeting and its agenda were provided to all news media and persons requesting notification. Commissioner Brown Crouch?
Yes.
Commissioner Clifford?
Here.
Commissioner Engelmann?
Here.
Commissioner Laughlin?
Here?
Commissioner Platt?
Here.
Commissioner Poston?
Here.
Commissioner Woolsey?
Here.
Okay, we're doing a continuation, so it's not really part of the program. A continuation, but, has anybody signed up to speak tonight?
No, sir, no one has signed up.
Got one of these fancy new toys and nobody wants to play with it. Okay. What is it that was just given?
It's part of my next couple of motions.
All right, before we get started on the actual ordinance and the discussion, I got a couple pieces of housekeeping I need to do. Number one, when you came in, you noticed that we had the sign posted back up on the door about electronic equipment, and that's because we've been having complaints from the audience that a lot of electronic transmissions have been going on, and it's distracting, and they're not able to hear
What state law are you quoting?
I'm quoting a rule that was passed by the PSD.
I've never seen that rule, and it's not in any of our things. I looked for
It's
it.
right up there.
I want to see a copy of it. I don't believe you, and I'm going to keep my phone, and I'm going to use it. What are you going to do about it?
Mr. Chair, usually it is subject to control a commissioner who continues to disrupt the proceedings. It is so exasperating.
Well,
And we know it is generally thought, I want to say it's proved, not universal, it's generally thought that the commission has intentions of seeing the PSD destroyed. And so many others seem to give evidence of that.
I'm also going to invoke,
The last time I was called down, I looked everywhere, and I couldn't find the
I'm
rule.
speaking, you will hold off, please. Thank you, and you too. I'm in the process of saying
Don't
something.
dare talk to me like that.
I will do it,
You will not.
because number one,
All
on the
right,
vote,
Inez, just leave it.
My daddy is dead.
Time close.
we're gonna have a little discussion before we go into the budget then about the rules of procedure that everybody here voted on. And number 25 is about decorum while you're in the meeting. Number 29 is the disruption of the commission meeting. And number 17D is interruption of commissioners while they're in the process of speaking. And I guarantee you, after what I've been through in the past three days, that I'm gonna invoke every one of those tonight sometime. So you may as well be prepared for it. Yes, ma'am.
Now you see what I went through last year, and you didn't think it was bad. And you see exactly what I went through.
Mea culpa.
Yeah. And I do want to tell you, if you're sitting at this table, you're a politician.
No, I'm still a grunt.
Did you say drunk?
Grunt.
Trump
And the other thing, starting the discussion for the, number 4, which is the ordinance number 2019-002. Since this is a continuation of a meeting, it's still considered the same meeting as we had yesterday. I'm going to ask for the commission to do a reconsideration of the amendment that we passed yesterday, which is to amend the 2020 budget to reduce the bond millage by 2 mills and to reduce the future capital leases and current year surplus from the debt service fund to 0. I'm going to ask for that to be reconsidered. And if I can get a second, then I'll be able to explain why.
No, second, thank you.
Okay. Some comments were made in the process last night, and I asked Mr. Kane to get us some information about the bond issues that we are going to be having and the amount of interest that would be charged as a result of our change in status. And I understand that he spent about half a day getting all of this arranged. So if you would, Mr. Kane, as part of what I want to discuss, if you take care of it.
Sure, I just wanted, I invited our bond attorney here so he could actually speak on the covenants in our bond and how the impact of lowering those are going to affect the ramifications of our SRF loan, our GO bond, our future GO bond, and up to $1 million in interest that would be to change in our status on our S&P. And so Mr. Alan Linkus at Sam Howell's office that you both met as partner.
I'll stand and address the commission, Mr. Chairman, commissioners. I sort of got brought up to speed quickly on this today and on this decision. And also I will say, I apologize to my law partner Sam Howell, who I think it was before you the last time you had bond business, is on an extended vacation, so he's even more familiar with these matters than I am. But I'm going to try to, Mr. Game asked me to come and give you some thoughts from the perspective of bond counsel, and I've been in conversations today also with the Commission's independent registered municipal financial advisor, who has even stronger thoughts on this matter even than I. To start with, the Commission has 2 different types of bonds. They're general obligation bonds, which are backed by the full faith, credit, and taxing power of the Commission. And there are revenue bonds that are backed by a pledge of the revenues and fees that are collected for services provided. They're 2 very different kinds of bonds that are issued from time to time, and they have different requirements. For, I guess, about 10 months, we've been aware of the Commission's developing plans to build a new fire station. And our understanding has been that that is primarily going to be paid for with an issuance of general obligation debt. So the decision to, I'm not here to tell you reduce by 2 mills or don't reduce by 2 mills. That's really, I understand what the goal is here, and that is to tax as little as possible to do what the Commission needs to do here to provide its service. I'm here to urge you to consult with your independent registered municipal advisor, who's already given the finances of the district a lot of consideration, and he's modeled, he's done a lot of modeling of debt and how it might be structured, and he's an expert in dealing with the rating agencies and sort of understanding how they think and you know what considerations they take into their analysis when assigning a rating on debt issuance. So these GO bonds, if they're sold the way we think they're going to be sold, they'll have a rating assigned to them from one or more of the major bond rating agencies. So that's a consideration that needs to go into the analysis, because the rating that's ultimately achieved will have a major impact on the cost of this financing over its whole life, whether it's 20 years, 15 years, or 30 years, whatever it is. The interest rates will be set at the time the debt is issued, which is, at the time that the commission's ready to get the money in the bank to build the project. So those interest rates will be set and over the whole life of the debt. So in addition, that general obligation bond may or may not require putting on debt service. So to take action right now to reduce debt service millage, when that decision might have to be reversed or reevaluated shortly thereafter, when you all are ready to get the funds for that project, really ought to require an analysis from your financial advisor about how much millage you really need for existing debt and contemplated debt, and then what's the best way to impose it. The rating agencies like to see, again, I'm not a financial advisor, and you have one, but in my conversations with him today, he couldn't be here, he's out of town. He imparted a lot of this to me, and this is also based on my personal experience. But the rating agencies tend to like to see a very stable, steady-as-you-go approach when it comes to planning for capital projects and debt service. So, up and down activity, especially immediately in advance of an issuance of new debt, could be something that's seen as odd to them. Again, my suggestion is just that you impose upon him to do what he's been hired to do, which is model the debt, do an analysis of where you are in terms of your debt service millage that you're collecting now, and then make a decision based on all that, factoring in what your current plans are for the foreseeable future. Are there other points that I should address?
I have two questions. You go ahead.
No, okay, are you at a break point?
Yeah, I'm at a breaking point. I mean, there's some other things I think probably, well, let me say one more thing. S&P, which is one of the major rating agencies, rates the district's revenue bond debt. And John Canny, your financial advisor, has been in the process of sort of preparing his analysis to go back to S&P to request a rating on the general obligation debt as you head in the direction of this issuance. Those are two different analyses. As I said, there are two different kinds of bonds paid from two different sources, so you analyze revenue bond debt one way and geo bond debt another way. But the S&P rating report that's associated with the revenue bond debt carries what's called a negative outlook. And what that means is the rating agency maintains its existing rating for now, but they view some factors that, if they get worse or aren't addressed, could cause a downgrade in the rating. So when you are approaching a new debt issuance and you've got that negative outlook consideration, it really is prudent to pause and really analyze what's causing that negative outlook and whether your actions leading into your rating request for the new rating might impact that further. The last thing you want to do is be ready to go to the bond market, request a rating, and have a new rating come out that's lower than your existing rating, a downgrade. I mean, that will just mean significant additional costs in terms of higher interest rates over the life of the debt.
ahead, that's the question.
Well, I'm gonna ask you, when you back up on that. All right, so they were gonna fund this piece of equipment that's broken right now, that was $100,000 at a 3% interest. So do you not think it would have been smarter just to go ahead and fund it rather than taking that money out of the rainy day fund? Because when I told my 50-plus year management analyst husband that last night, I think he cleared the bed about 2 feet, because he said, that's the most insane thing I've ever heard, that you're gonna take your savings and buy something that you would only pay 3% interest on.
He was gonna speak for the rainy day fund, that was number 5.
Yeah, Mr. Gage sent me this list of proposed amendments to the budget, and I glanced at it, and the one thing that really jumped off the page at me, based on my experience, was the suggestion of eliminating the rainy day fund. And the reason is just, I've been on numerous rating agency calls, usually after the rating agency does a good bit of their analysis, then they come back to the issuer with a list of questions or concerns or things they'd like to talk about further, and you schedule a rating call, and then you kind of go through that list. The one thing they regularly ask about is the rainy day fund. They like to see it there. I guess a point I'd like to make is on the in general, sort of the philosophy of running a governmental body in a way that's seen as fiscally conservative versus maybe a business. The governmental body needs to be prepared for the downturn that might come. And I can't tell you the number of clients that we have who were very fiscally conservative in a way that they had significant fund balances on hand, that in the period after the big real estate market crash in 2008, when collections and revenues were down significantly from where they had been, they were able to access those fund balances to smooth out those rough times until things kind of recovered in the economy. So, you know, one way of thinking of it is if you maintain a fund balance and have it sit there, seems wasteful, because it seems like that money could be used for some cost today which needs to be paid, and therefore the taxpayer doesn't have to come out of pocket for that amount of money. But that analysis alone can be damaging to the overall creditworthiness of a governmental body in such a way that it costs a lot more than that amount of savings over the life of all these debt obligations that are issued. And it's quantifiable. You can, S&P, for example, has a matrix online, and you can go in and fiddle with it and put your metrics of your governmental body in that model, and you can manipulate them, and it'll show you sort of a rough idea of what that would do to your rate, your municipal bond rating. And so you can see when you start whittling down your fund balances significantly, especially things like the rainy day fund, that causes the rating to come down. So again, I'm not here to tell you use this money for this or don't use this money for that. I just think it would be prudent at this stage with this capital project that's coming down the pike, that you use the services of your financial advisor that you've already got on board. He's ready, willing, and able, and very good at helping you make those decisions and modeling modeling your debt and debt service in a way that accomplishes what you want to accomplish, which is running the organization as lean as you can run it, and kind of, make sure there's no fat in the budget. So I'm not that guy. I'm the lawyer who helps you get the paperwork done and get your get your bonds out there, but you have that guy on your payroll right now, he's standing by to help.
Well, the other thing I was gonna ask, because when I told my husband about we pulled 100,000 on the rainy day fund, he said, well, you just affected your Moody's report. And I thought, I don't get this. But he explained it to me like this: we have a swap account with a margin. And he said at any point when the market tanks or the economy tanks, they can do a margin call on you. And they can sell off whatever stocks they want to in your account to bring you up to what you owe on your margin. And he told me last night, he said, you wouldn't take, if you're getting 3% interest on a loan, he said, that's pretty good for $100,000. You know, I bought a $30,000 car last year and had a 0% interest, and I was really happy with it. But if you're getting a 3% interest on $100,000, I mean, that's pretty doggone good. But now we pulled $100,000 off our savings to pay for this equipment, which we need the equipment, there was no doubt. But, you know, I think now when looking back, we should have financed it. Because those things, we're acting in the heat of the moment, and we're acting because we're tired, and we're going into 3 hours of blah, blah, blah. That, you know, I'm concerned about making decisions like that. But does that affect your Moody rating?
It could, yeah, using up those funds in the rainy day fund could impact it, and especially if the rating agency has sort of already developed a mindset with this negative outlook that they're looking for further factors that might cause them to make a decision to downgrade. So it's just, you just need to be cautious at this stage, you know, in order to preserve the rating that you have on your revenue bonds and hopefully achieve that rating for your GO debt.
You didn't tell me you were an attorney, I would have disliked you immediately.
I'm so sorry.
But you did.
Everybody hates lawyers until they read them.
Well, I use Andy Savage when I tell people that, they go, what did you ever do? Nothing.
Well, I think there's an assumption, understandably, in your approach that is being prudent to hold the knowledge of the estimates on the funds. You see the first year expenditure for Fire Station 1 being changed. However, there have been suggestions to try to cut the cost a little bit. No one certainly absolutely does not want to eliminate it. We've been pushing with this for more than a decade. Well, Commissioner Brown Couch had a very creative idea, seriously, which is, she knew that I was very enthusiastic about cedar all around. And others thought that maybe we should go with the hardy plank, which is much cheaper. So Commissioner Brown Couch suggested, well, why not have the cedar on the front, which makes a nice impression, and the less expensive material even the sides and back, which would save a lot of money, but still would not, I don't think would negatively impact the either the utility or the, you know, the livability for the firefighters.
But the one thing about that, because I did the homework, putting that changing planking on it, on a $4 million building, changes the funding $61,000. And it also increases the fire, danger and everything else.
Really?
Yeah.
I would thought it was the opposite.
No, it does.
Well,
And-
you're saying the hardy plank is more flammable?
Right, that's what we were told when we went by Buck and talked with them and everything, but
Concrete is flammable. Is that right?
I don't think so.
is concrete flammable, Friday? I don't think so.
It is, if it gets real hot, it's what they call the spallies, it pops out,
Splatters.
splatters, it pops out. But
Compared to
hardy-
wood?
No, wood is definitely more flammable.
From what I've read in California, they really love hardy plank because they have a big problem with houses catching on fire over there.
Hopefully, we won't have that again. But, you know, it saves $61,000 out of a 4 million plus building.
To have Hardy Plank or to have Cedar?
The one you checked that, because I went to Buck and I said, look, because I want to know, and he said, well, we did the square footage of the building that they got from Lee Olio, and he said you'll save 61,000.
Doing what?
Changing to the wood that you preferred, that was like $2,
The Hardy Plank, changing to Hardy would save $61,000.
61,000.
Well, I think we need to table this whole discussion for the fire committee, because we're here talking to the bond person.
Okay, in your discussion a few minutes ago, you're saying, if I understood you correctly, that you do not like the idea of doing the debt service fund to zero. That's not a good management decision.
On that subject, I didn't address that yet, but normally, the way the debt service fund works is you've got to make, you collect funds periodically through the year on whenever they come in, or you are required, according to your indenture that that's imposed upon you, to make deposits in there on a certain schedule. Those deposits that come into that account normally do not neatly line up with the payments that have to come out of that account.
Yeah, it's staggered.
It's staggered, so it's normally that account, you wouldn't zero it out, say, at a random moment like a fiscal year end, because you're not really looking at a surplus in there, you're just looking at a moment in time. And so if you zero it out at some random period, that would normally leave you at a shortage when the debt service payments need to be taken out of that at some point later. I haven't done any analysis on this account, and I don't think I'm the person, again, I'm not the financial guy. But I think that's the issue you have to get your arms around before you decide to do that, or else you might find yourself in a situation where monies were expected to be in that account and they were zeroed out and they're not there.
And that's gonna leave us, as far as all of the bond markets, kind of holding something that's not there, and will.
A financial default on a bond issue is catastrophic for your ability to borrow money to fund capital projects in the future. I mean, it lasts
There goes our interest.
nearly forever. When not only that, I mean, it would make it so that it would be very difficult to even borrow money.
And if we could, it would be a real high interest.
That's right.
And currently, monthly, we make between $90,000 and $100,000 is our deposit monthly to those debts. That's a payment we're making monthly for those future payments the U.S. Bank makes for us on those bonds. And
The way most bonds are structured is you have a principal payment due once a year and interest payments due twice a year. But the issuer is required to make deposits in there, normally on a monthly basis, to accumulate that money,
Right.
so that, when the big payment comes due, it's sitting there. And you don't have to come up with it, the whole amount once a year. You contribute to it over the course of the year. So you really need to just look at that account and what's being paid into it and what's being taken out of it, and see if you've got a surplus in it.
I think you totally misunderstand my motion, and you seem to have a copy of it, but it doesn't say zero out the debt service. It says reduce the current year's surplus in the debt service fund to zero. We're not talking about zeroing it out.
So
are we?
that's how I read it, so maybe I misread it.
Yeah, and, we do have a surplus in there. We just don't want to make any more surplus in there. That was the
We do
intent.
not have a surplus in there.
I'm going by the numbers
I
you
understand.
gave me, but why don't we have a
We
surplus? You
pay
gave me wrong
$100,000.
numbers?
No, I do not give the wrong numbers.
Mhm.
I resent you saying that. I think,
You be saying
no, I do
But
not.
you just,
I said we pay $100,000 a month out of that fund. Those funds are not surplus. Where do you see a surplus?
well,
I mean, I'd like to see where you see a surplus. Again, our credit rating was AA negative, 2018, negative outlook. By the restatement of financial, by working with John, the financial advisor, for trying to change that negative outlook. And so that was all part of the restatement, that was all part of these, John's been involved in every one of these decisions and why we put these numbers where they're at. I do not see a surplus. A surplus of $60,000, if that's what you're looking at for next year, is not a surplus. I see a negative, I see under for 2009, fiscal year 19 of 59,000, I see under of 35,000
We're
for
not talking
fiscal
about
year.
last year's budget, we're talking about what you proposed for this year's.
$35,000 under the debt service payments is what I see, a negative $35,000. At the very bottom there, I don't see where you see a
I'm talking
surplus.
about this year's budget, your plan.
I am too.
So you've already put in a negative number, and I didn't see any negative numbers in the budget. you
It says
presented.
over under to cover next year's debt service payment, $35,907.
Okay,
Yeah, and
let's
that's real.
Also,
just keep this to conversation now.
I have a completely different question. I've worked in government before. Normally, when we have a project, we get the architect to plan it, and then a builder gives us an estimate. And then we go and figure out what our bond is, and then we go to the auditor and say, we want this millage to go on it to pay for it. Is that correct, or is that how people normally do it?
I would have to agree with that.
But what we did was, we kind of got a rough estimate of what our fire station would be. We went to the auditor and said, we want this millage on there. And we haven't even gone to you and have we not gone to you yet? And we don't even know what the builder says it's gonna cost, right? And we have not gone to you and said, we need a bond for this fire station, have we?
We have not sized a bond yet.
Yes, but we've already gone to the auditor and we've been taxing people on something we don't know how much it's gonna cost. That's the way we did it last year. We've added,
And I'll be honest with you, I'm not that familiar with that part of the process. You know, that may be how it works to smooth it out so that, you know, so that.
so we're
you don't have
collecting
to
money
do
even though we don't
steps.
even know how much the fire stations, we've already started collecting money on that.
Anybody else have anything?
I have one thing to add, back up on what Ms. Commissioner Woolsey said a while ago, and you'll have your parliamentary book. When you table a discussion, you kill it. You didn't say, we'll discuss it 2 weeks. You kill that discussion.
We
Nobody's
ain't
tabled
tabled.
anything.
She said, can we table this
Well, I
another
didn't
day
mean
for the
table
fire
it, table
committee?
it, I meant just
Postpone.
postpone.
But when we met, because I used to do that to
Wrong
her all
word,
the
thank
time,
you
I'd
for
say,
pointing that
well,
out.
let's table that, which I kill what she was talking about.
Well, no, I meant, I used the wrong word,
Okay.
excuse me.
Okay, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. James, do you have anything to add?
I do not.
Okay. I made the motion that we reconsider this, and I'm gonna add to it a little bit. I have a real problem with us making amendments to the budget at this stage that have not been put through any kind of monetary consideration or analysis. I'm looking at general comments here. I mean, they're specific comments, but they don't have a specific dollar amount tied to them. And I know that if you adjust this, if you adjust the revenue, which is what we're talking about here, and we have not changed by law to have a balanced budget as far as our expenditures are concerned, we're in a very, very, very deep hole. Because unless I've misread somewhere, the law says that we have to have a balanced budget when we submit it. Okay, so what we've done here with all of these amendments that haven't even been brought up yet is look at the revenue side of this, and we have not done any adjustments on the expenditure side. And we're gonna pass these amendments and say, okay, now you handle it. what happens if there's a situation where it cannot be handled? Or if it drives us into a negative value as far as what our budget is concerned? I think that we could take this, or what I would like to do, we reconsider the one that we did last night, and we take all, what, 14 or 15 or whatever it is, we give it to our finance department, and we ask them, or we direct them, I should say, to come up with a balanced budget. If we do number one, a balanced budget. If we do not number one, but we do number two, so on a line item by line item, an adjustment of what needs to be done on the budget before we read it into the budget as an amendment. And then we look at, if we do all of them, what needs to be done to come up with a balanced budget. Now, admittedly, every one of these will end up reducing the taxes on the population because it's gonna be less revenue coming in. But I have a real concern that this will end up driving us into a negative value as far as the budget's concerned. Because there has been absolutely no, and I mean none, financial, what's the word I want to use, analysis of it as to what it's gonna do to the budget.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
She had her hand up first.
Go ahead.
Right. Ladies first.
Sure.
Well, I just wanna say that, so we get this budget, and as you heard last night from every public comment, the song has not changed. They are not happy with what this commission, before I was seated here, which is what made me run in the first place, was they weren't put on notice about what was going on, and it got passed at the last minute. Now we're getting their input. They're adamant, they wanna see three would be great, two's awesome, one, something to show them that we're sincere about our promises, that when we got here, that these taxes are going to go down. I've heard that 2 mil padding thing assessed to 4 or 5 different things. Oh no, we did that for employee something over here. Nope, that was for this. Who all was this 2 mil that was built into the budget promised to? Because I've heard 5 different, I've got it in every single one of my notes. There's 5 different places where they promised that 2 mil. So if we stuck it in somewhere, number of people, how do we get 2 mil back? I don't know. Can you please help us with that? Well, everything sounded so awesome in the meeting and everything's nice and tight. The people that put us all here, they aren't happy at all. And people living on fixed incomes are not gonna be able to, yes, it's got to go up at some point, I get it. I mean, nothing's free, you got one pie, we're trying to split it up in 19 different ways. But it was added in, that it's been promised to somebody, it's gotta come off of somewhere. Please.
Mr. Platt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree certainly with the gist of your comments. And also Commissioner Clifford's. And the guidance we received from our guest and the CFO. I understand perfectly that we're required to have a balanced budget, no question about it. Nevertheless, and piggybacking on what Mr. Clifton said, the people are demanding some relief, and it is a fact that following the passage of the budget for this year, the 3 commissioners who voted for that, whose different election were all defeated. I feel fortunate that I had an excused absence that night. I was out of the country. I don't know how I would have voted, but certainly I did not vote for the budget. Had I voted for the budget and had been standing for re-election, no doubt I would have been defeated too. But decision should be made on whether you elect or not. But we should pay attention to what the people are saying. They're absolutely outraged. And I think staff has had a full year to come up with a budget that was not a continuation. Just saying that there's no increase is insufficient. I was prepared tonight to vote against passage of ordinance, but also to vote no on all the amendments. My rationale being this: I think there's consensus that we want more millage, but always been opposed to micromanaging. What I believe we should do is instruct staff to give us the budget that reduces the millage for whatever we decide on, but let them decide how to get there. That's their job, to decide how to get there, and maybe to give us some options on how to get to the desired rural millage. Thank you.
There's one thing bad about this. If this budget does not pass, and I call my CFO today to ask, if this budget does not pass on its first and second reading, it will revert back to last year's budget, and they can raise the millage again, the 6 or 8 mils, whatever it was last year, I don't know. But don't worry, I'm not running again in 2 years, so you don't have to worry about voting me off, because this has not been any picnic.
You're right about that.
Well, it's just been full of ants, and I'm sick of it. And contrary last night, because the lady said it, I am so beyond sick of hearing it. Our Congress retires on $175,000 a year. No, they don't. They retire on the number of years they've been in Congress, making $175,000. If we've made in retirement what my husband made for working, his butt would go back to work. You know, because he would get a COLA every year.
Chris?
Well, my feeling is that, I am here for the constituents. And, the thing is that we have senior citizen, I've been getting calls about this budget. We got senior citizens, we got single families, we got people who is not able to, continue to, just pay all these things that we are putting on now. We got to look out for everybody. We have a responsibility to look out for everyone. The poor, the less fortunate, everybody. We have a responsibility. And to just sit back in our office and just do figures and don't even think about who we're hurting is something. And one thing we need to get is we need sensitivity in this PSD. There's no sensitivity. People, yesterday at the hearing, people, they talked to us about, the inability to pay all these fees. Everything is just going up, up, up. I mean, I'm sorry, we got to do something. We have a responsibility, and we need to make this budget where it fits the need of everybody. That's unfinished.
Would you like to say anything?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the same as what Marilyn, what Commissioner Clifford was saying. I mean, that's exactly how I feel, and I would have been raising my hand to say the same thing, but, I mean, you both said very much, I mean, we're all sort of saying the same thing. We all, in similar ways, are on the same page, but, and this is just, how do we figure out how to cut things? Again, money goes up, property tax, of course, is gonna, but also, houses that, just, 5-10 years ago, you could buy for half of what now they're selling for, and they need lots of work done to them, whereas 10 years ago they didn't. And they're way more expensive. Property, everything's gonna be more expensive. So we have to figure out how to help these people, not only, that are obviously very much in need because, they are, elderly, disabled families, single parents, but just anyone, because they deserve to not have to pay that type of tax. It's not fair. And we promised that when we ran, that we were going to change things, and so we have to.
Mr. Wilson?
Well, the staff was here last year when we had 75 people show up, about 30 of them spoke. They were all upset about the tax increase. The staff watched the election, they knew what was going on, they saw the election results, and yet they weren't listening. They didn't listen to the people, and they didn't listen to what we were talking about. And we've had so much going on this beginning of the year. And maybe and we really didn't have time to say, hey, look, we were never given an opportunity to say, we wanna roll back 2 mills, or whatever. And yet the staff came back up with this budget that didn't roll back taxes, because they didn't listen to the people, and they didn't really hear what we think. And, so I felt like I couldn't trust the staff. So I worked very hard. We all talked about rolling back, but I'm the only one who's come up with proposals. I did a lot of work on these, and my husband too. And this is what I came up with, because the staff failed to do it. And I think we're all in agreement, we need to roll back. And I wanna tell you, because I worked for Berkeley County for 19 years, there were 3 or 4 years that we did not get the budget passed on time. And one year, we went all the way to October before they passed the budget. I don't think they were ever punished. It might be a law, but it seems to be not very enforceable. What are they gonna do? So if we do go over, I don't think we'll be in trouble, and especially if we went over and reduced the budget, I think our constituents would be happy that we went over. And what you do when you do go over and you don't do it, you just keep operating on your same budget, and there's no millage to add to that. But we were not allowed to buy our big equipment items. We had to just operate, but we couldn't spend money on the new stuff we wanted. And that's how it operated. I think we'll probably be going over. It might be just a couple of weeks. Let's hope we don't pull another Berkeley County on us. But I would be willing to just make a motion to say we ask this budget to go back to staff and tell them how many millage we want to cut and let them come up with it. I will point out the only department that seemed to take cuts or not really add much was the fire department, and I really appreciate that. So that's my thoughts on it.
Mr. Chair, if we deal with the motions on the floor now, if Commissioner Wilson makes that simply worded motion, I'd be happy to second it.
Well, I make the motion, we send this budget back to the staff.
We have another motion.
What's the other motion? That he
Yeah,
was,
to reconsider
okay.
amendment number 1 there. In other words, put it back to
Well, if you
rescind our.
withdraw that
passage.
motion, this would cover that, wouldn't it?
Well, we need to rescind that first, and then we can make the motion to do what you just said.
The one issue with this is we're 3 weeks from the second reading of the budget. And not saying y'all didn't promise this, because I know you promised it. You ran on the campaign. I will stand out here on my Bibles and tell y'all I'm gonna roll the budget back. We got plenty of 20-something Democrats doing that right now, coming down here to Mother Emanuel. But the thing about it is you can't 3 weeks from the second reading of the budget come up. I don't disagree with most of Kathy's motions. There's a couple that I do. But you can't say it now, because if you wanted to say that when y'all were sworn in early in January, the first meeting you were here, you should have come here and said, when you do the budget this year, you roll it back 2 mills, not 3 weeks from when we're getting ready to have the second vote on the budget.
Yeah, I think this is a quintessential case where better late than never.
Yeah, but my thing is, if you don't approve this budget, don't call the fire department in June and say, my house is on fire, because they're gonna say, you better go find a water hose. Don't call the EMS and say, my husband's on the floor with a heart attack, or my wife's on the floor with a broken neck. Don't call the EMS, because they say, you got a
That's
car,
county.
take them to the hospital.
Well, everything that has been mentioned here is a good point. Every bit of it is a good point. What we need to do is to take care of this at this point. So if we rescind our passage of Amendment 1, and then we make the motion, that Commissioner Woolsey has said, and give it to, excuse me, and give it to the staff, to do even a one mil reduction, then we have gotten a start on what we promised. And Mr. Game and I have already been talking for the budget for next year. I know you have to plan a little bit ahead, but there's gonna be a whole different process that's gonna start earlier on doing the budget for 2021. Unfortunately, we were kind of stuck with what we have right now because of previous actions. So anyway, I'm gonna
I
call.
don't understand what you're saying, you're talking in riddles.
Well, I'm trying to be polite.
Um,
Well, the motion that's on here right now is to rescind our vote on Amendment 1, and then we can go from that point.
Second.
Okay? Would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Brown
Uh,
Crouch?
If we vote yes on this, a yes vote is to rescind our vote from yesterday. Okay? Go ahead.
Commissioner Brown Crouch?
no,
Commissioner Clifford?
Yes.
Commissioner Engelmann?
Hell, I don't even know what we made a motion on.
I don't know either, just.
Amendment
This is to
1,
rescind Amendment 1.
We,
To
the one
amend
we
the
passed yesterday, you wanna pull that one back
The
and say
amendment.
it didn't happen. But then we're gonna go back today and vote on all that again. Is that right?
as a lump from everything.
I'm gonna call my husband and come pick me up. This is ridiculous. We don't give them a budget change in May and say, do this because, how are these people gonna get paid next month when we haven't told them, Tecklenburg, how they gonna get their
According to
money?
our rules of procedure, you do your vote, we do get the results on the vote, and then you can do the discussion on it.
What?
You cannot explain your vote until after everybody has done their
Well,
vote.
I'm not even gonna vote on it, so I don't have to explain my
Is
vote.
that an abstention, or is
It's
that
a
a
no
no or
vote.
a yes?
No vote.
Commissioner Laughlin?
Yes.
Commissioner Platt?
Aye.
Commissioner Poston?
Yes.
Commissioner Woolsey?
No.
Motion carries 4-3.
Okay, so,
I'll make a motion that we send this budget back to staff and request that they try to reduce the budget by 2 mills.
I'm seconding it.
okay, any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I would think that the staff would enumerate some hard choices for us. That's what we're able to do sometimes, to make hard choices. And all depends, if a constituent doesn't like some area that has to be modified, as well, we had to do that in order to give you full taxes.
I'll tell you, what we've already been discussing, there's gonna be, hopefully throughout the whole year, when we have issues that come up, we'll be doing a lot better discussion with ourselves and with the public to explain why something may happen at budget time, and then we'll be able to do reminders of that when the budget time does actually come up. Any other discussion?
My understanding is, if for some reason we go past the deadline, we keep operating at the current, we'll still get money in, we'll still be paying people's salaries, the fire trucks will still run, but they just can't spend money on big equipment. They can do emergency stuff, but they can't spend any money until we pass the budget. So that's how we function in Berkeley County. I'm pretty sure it's probably the
That's almost
standard.
universal, I think.
Yeah.
It's universal.
As you know, our Congress took forever passing the budget.
Like years.
So if anyone is concerned, we'll just pass the continuing resolution, as they call it.
Okay, would you call the roll, please?
So the motion is to send the budget back to staff to try to reduce it to 2 mills.
Yes.
Mr. Platt seconded, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown Crouch?
Yes.
Commissioner Clifford?
Yes.
Commissioner Engelmann? Commissioner Laughlin,
Yes?
Commissioner Platt,
Aye.
Commissioner Poston,
Yes.
Commissioner Woolsey.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. That in line, that means that ordinance 2902, the first reading.
Mr. Lakeman's gonna leave unless anybody has any
Okay.
questions. Is that okay with
Thank
y'all?
you, sir.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
I would say we don't
So-
have a first reading.
Right.
All right, that means that we will have to do a first reading and a
Whenever
second reading.
somebody's gonna have to be burning the midnight oil and come up, and we'll just have to call a meeting. As soon as they're ready with it, call the meeting, we gotta give notice and all that. We're gonna go over, no doubt, we're gonna go over. We'll have to come up with a new timeline, and we're just gonna have to go over.
That's right, and if we, invent something, that gentleman in the corner back there, we can put the cuffs on us and serve my time.
I ain't got no cough on me.
Like I said, nobody seemed to be arrested, or I don't even think they're reading fine. But,
I'm being trying to be facetious.
yeah, I know, but, I'll point out too that, I think if the public finds we went over and we reduced it, they'll be happy. That's what we want, happy people.
Okay, so we have
Yes, chief?
several
We got on the
timelines that
side
we
for
have
us.
to work.
That's very distracting,
Jane, please, thank you. We have several timelines that we have to be aware of. Number one, we have to have a 15-day advance notice on the public hearing. We have to, several of them, I can't even remember what they are, but we're gonna try and do this
I'm
to
just,
June the 24th, which is our next meeting.
what if we vote not to pass this budget, isn't that still the first reading?
Yes,
So we should actually vote not to pass this budget right now. And we have my motion to send it back, which probably should have done it the other way, but, and I wonder if that just counts as our first reading. We had a first reading and we didn't pass it. I'm not sure about that, but I think it's something we should look into.
all right, let's try something else.
I don't think it's gonna be in any rule book, but we can check on this, just look at that. I see what you're saying, but let's just look at some other time or later.
Well, yeah, because it was obviously read.
We read it and
Reject-
we rejected
send
it, so
back
that
to
was
the
our
drawing
first
board.
reading. But we'll look into this and see if we can get by with that. And then, we were told that we could change the budget between the first reading and the second reading.
Yes.
And one attorney told me, he says, if it's substantial, you've gotta have a first reading. But nobody's gonna complain if you reduce the budget. They would really get mad if you changed it and increased taxes, but if you reduced it, nobody's gonna really care, but. And I think dropping the mills it might not be that substantial, I don't know. 2 mills doesn't sound very substantial to me. But I think it's something we could look into. But go ahead, let's figure out our schedule for right now. Or maybe, I think we should have a motion to pass the budget, second it, and then we vote against it. That's what I think we should do.
I think in fact that we do that, adopting the motion when that be effective.
The budget, as written, says, are you gonna pass it this way? Yes or no? Obviously, no, because we're asking to redo 2 mills.
So
This
you
budget
still
does
have
not
to-
pass. It is going through a first reading. We're
It's
not
not
passing it,
first
and now we're
reading.
sending it back to have it reworked. That's the way I see it, but I might be wrong.
No, that's,
Well, I take Steve's point, so, so we can, Mr. Chair, just take a vote on the budget, and it has been, in effect, it has been amended, and,
The problem we put the cart before the horse and
Well, it's technicality.
what I was checking to see is if we could do one more withdrawal of this vote, do the ordinance and do an amendment to the ordinance while we're considering the ordinance. In other words, put the amendment in the discussion for the ordinance.
Well, the ordinance was amended, but we still have to either pass or fail the ordinance altogether, right?
Oh,
Amended or
I
not.
say, we vote for it as amended, right?
No, I'm saying I didn't make, when I made my motion to send it back to staff, that was not an amendment to the budget, was it? I didn't think it was. It was just a directive to the staff.
Yes, that's what I took it as
Yeah.
completely.
I directed the staff to
Okay, so-
redo it, but I did not, that was not part of the budget amendment. That was not part of the budget. Do you understand?
Correct.
Yeah, you thought that too, didn't you?
Right,
Yeah,
and
she
then
thought
thing
that
with the
too.
ordinance.
So we still have before us,
Okay, so
That-
then we need to vote on ordinance
Ordinance.
2019.
Right.
Yeah.
002,
yeah, so we have already had it,
first reading.
we've already had it,
This is the first reading.
but I'm saying this has already been, a motion has been made. And then I made all these other motions. But now we're ready to call the question and vote this, budget up or down.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah, who's moving?
So,
Well, I think we already made a motion to,
The motion is to adopt the budget.
Right,
and
who
then-
made the motion?
I can't remember, it
Oh,
was yesterday.
Put me down.
That wasn't, yeah, that's,
Okay, Alan
I
made the
made- I
motion
did.
and I seconded
Okay.
it, just put something down.
Commissioner
So-
Brown,
excuse me, we are voting on,
ordinance,
August
On
fourth,
board.
budget ordinance, first reading.
2019-002.
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
voting no.
Okay, we're voting, okay,
Commissioner Brown Crouch,
no.
Commissioner Clifford,
Clarification, we are voting, this is the vote to say this budget does not pass as
This is the first reading. Vote,
First
yes.
So you would say, if you don't want this budget, you would say no.
Yes.
Right.
No. Just wanna make sure I get it right.
Commissioner Engelmann, Commissioner Laughlin,
I'll say yes.
Commissioner Platt,
No.
Commissioner Polston,
No.
Commissioner Woolsey.
No.
Motion
So-
approved.
Yes, I was.
Okay, moving on.
I make a motion we adjourn.
I wanted to say something
Okay,
before we
go
go to
ahead.
that part.
Okay, there's no second, so you could go.
Sorry, but I cannot, for the life of me, understand, let's see here, code of conduct and standards of behavior. Respectfulness by consistently and constantly treating everyone with dignity, civility, decency, and respect. We have a commissioner that comes in, announces they don't wanna run, they're obviously not taking any interest in what's going on at this table. Things don't look great, so you pick up your toys and you leave. Can somebody ask Ms. Engelmann if she'd rather just, resign her commission, because the process is not getting far helped. And I don't think that the way that she treats people, and I sure respected this meeting. Either come or don't come, but, you hear something you don't like, and then you walk out, it's very disruptive. And I just, either that or an apology from her to this commission and to this body, these people take their time to be here. We're not here to grandstand and be worried about me. I'm sorry, but that's just unacceptable. And I would like, maybe we can remedy it somehow, but
We felt she was still under doctor's care for a broken neck, so.
If I may, I would also like to say, I thought this beforehand and from the beginning. Now, she in ways has certainly gotten a bit softer at how she's able to address things. She apologized to you, which everyone knows at this table. Yes, that's a bit, that was surprising in a way, but yeah, I understand all the things, but yes, it is a bit concerning because it wasn't just,
or if you would
Since
just
the
tell her
health
that we
thing.
didn't, but I just wanted to throw that out there, sorry.
well, that's, I went to,
I know.
because she was finished speaking and I said I was concurring,
Anyway.
because that is a concern. because it's a lot of again, taxpayer money that's going to a seat that is almost always empty and doesn't have much of a legitimate reason behind it. It doesn't.
To respond to that, I will check and find out how much longer she's gonna be underneath the doctor's care for this. That'll give us an indication,
Thank you.
okay? Do we want, committee reports?
No.
No, call for adjournment.
Okay,
A second.
no discussion, so would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Brown Crouch,
Yes.
Commissioner Clifford,
Yes.
Commissioner Engelmann, Commissioner Laughlin,
Yes.
Commissioner Platt,
Aye.
Commissioner Poston,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Everybody